Hello, friends. Today we are discussing a topic that worries many of you, those who have already raised children and are now faced with a situation where children call less often than they would like. Perhaps you feel lonely, wondering, why don't they call? Do they really not need me anymore? It's normal that such thoughts come to mind. But let's figure out together why this is happening, what the reasons are, and most importantly, how to restore contact and return the warmth of the relationship. The reasons why children call less often. The first thing to understand is that the reasons may be different, and they are not always related to your actions. Sometimes it's just life, its rhythm, and the peculiarities of the modern world. Let's look at each reason in more detail. 1. The modern rhythm of life. Modern adult children live in a world where everything moves very fast. They have jobs, families, their own problems and worries. They may simply not physically have time to call as often as before. This does not mean that they have forgotten you or stopped loving you. Imagine their day. They run to work early in the morning, they are busy with chores all day, and they are busy with their children or household chores in the evening. They may feel like they just don't have time for long conversations. For example, if your son works in an office and spends several hours in traffic every day, he may simply not have the energy after a day at work. And if your daughter is raising a small child, she may be completely absorbed in his needs. It is important to understand that this is not a lack of love, but simply the realities of their daily lives. Let's delve into this aspect. The modern culture of work and career growth often requires a lot of effort from people. Many young people work not only for money, but also to achieve certain goals, such as moving up the career ladder or starting their own business. This process can take a lot of time and energy, leaving little room for personal life, including communication with parents. In addition, modern technologies, although they simplify communication, sometimes create the illusion of constant accessibility. People may feel like they are always in touch, even if they are actually busy with other things. For example, if your son writes you a short message instead of a full conversation, it does not mean that he ignores you. It's just that text communication has become a more convenient way for him to keep in touch. 2. The separation of generations. There is often a cultural or technological gap between parents and children. You may not understand their world, but they don't understand yours. This creates barriers to communication. For example, if you want to talk about the past, your memories, or advice that seems important to you, your children may not find it particularly interesting. They are preoccupied with the future, new technologies, social media, and other aspects of modern life. This gap becomes especially noticeable when it comes to different approaches to solving problems. For example, if you are accustomed to relying on traditional methods of conflict resolution or financial issues, your children may prefer more modern approaches, such as using online services or consulting with experts. This can cause misunderstandings and even conflicts. In addition, the language of communication may vary. If you are used to talking on the phone and your children prefer instant messengers or video calls, this can create additional difficulties. To you, text messages may seem cold and formal, but to them it's a common way of communicating. Let's take a concrete example. Imagine that you want to talk to your son about the importance of saving money. You suggest that he open a bank account and save a portion of his income on a regular basis. However, your son already uses mobile apps to manage finances and invests in various projects. His view of finance may be very different from yours, which creates a barrier to a productive dialogue. 3. Shyness or guilt. Sometimes children are just too shy to call, especially if they believe that they have not achieved certain goals or have not met your expectations. They may be afraid of criticism or feel uncomfortable. For example, if your son has been unable to find a job for a long time or your daughter is experiencing financial difficulties, they may avoid talking so as not to talk about these problems. It is also important to remember that children sometimes feel responsible for your well-being. If they know that you depend on them financially or emotionally, They may feel stressed and avoid contact so as not to hear requests for help. This aspect is especially relevant for families where parents sacrifice themselves for the success of their children. If a child feels that their success is a key condition for your happiness, they may experience enormous pressure. For example, if you constantly told your son, "I've worked all my life for you to get a good education," he may feel he has to live up to those expectations. If he is facing difficulties, he may prefer to avoid talking so as not to disappoint you. 4. Physical or emotional fatigue. Many adult children work long hours, have their own children, or have other obligations. They may be too tired to keep in regular contact. It's not a lack of love, it's just a human factor. After a hard day, they may just want to relax rather than have long conversations. For example, if your son works the night shift, his routine may be very different from yours. He may wake up when you are already asleep, and vice versa. This creates additional difficulties for organizing time together. Fatigue can manifest itself not only physically, but also emotionally. Many people, especially those who have their own family, experience constant emotional stress. They may feel that they should be perfect parents, partners, and employees at the same time. This can lead to burnout, which reduces their ability to actively communicate with others, including their parents. 5. Geographical distance. If your children live far away, this also affects the frequency of contacts. Of course, technology allows you to keep in touch, but physical distance sometimes makes relationships less intimate. Time differences, lifestyle differences, and cultural differences can create additional barriers. For example, if your son lives in another country, it may be difficult for him to adapt to a new environment. He can focus on solving practical issues such as work, housing, and language, and not have time for lengthy conversations with his family. Geographical distance can also create a sense of another world. Children living abroad may begin to perceive their new environment as home, which may make them less connected to their family back home. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but it requires additional efforts to maintain intimacy. How to react to this situation. Now that we know the possible causes, let's talk about how to respond to this situation. The first and most important thing is not to take it personally. Your task is not to judge, but to understand and help yourself and your children find a new format of communication. 1. Don't dramatize the situation. If you start saying phrases like, "You don't care about me," "You've completely forgotten me," it will only complicate the relationship. Instead, try to be patient and understanding. Remember that your mood directly affects children. If you constantly complain, they may start avoiding contact even more. In addition, it is important to realize that dramatizing a situation can lead to the opposite effect. When you say, "You never call," it may make your children feel guilty, but it doesn't necessarily prompt them to take action. Instead, they may feel unable to meet your expectations and pull away even more. 2. Initiate the contact yourself. Don't wait for the kids to call. Be an active party. Just call them first, send a message, or write an email. Sometimes it's this first step that helps defuse the situation. For example, you can say, "Hi, we haven't talked in a long time. How are you?" Without unnecessary pressure or accusations. Initiating contact can seem difficult, especially if you are used to waiting for your children to take the first step. However, it can be a powerful tool to restore trust and warmth in a relationship. For example, if you regularly send short messages wishing good morning or congratulations on the holidays, your children may begin to perceive these contacts as something natural and pleasant. 3. Use modern technology. If your children prefer to communicate via messengers or social media, learn how to use these platforms. It may seem complicated, but believe me, the result is worth the effort. Start with the simple things. Install popular apps like WhatsApp or Telegram and gradually master their functions. You can even record short video messages, which children often find more personal than regular calls. Using modern technology can be not only a way to communicate, but also a source of new knowledge for you. For example, if you learn how to use Instagram, you can follow your children's lives through their posts and share your own photos and stories. This will create a sense of constant connection, even if you don't see each other in person. 4. Don't push your emotions. Avoid phrases like, "You didn't even call for my birthday." Such words can cause children to feel guilty and lead to the opposite effect. It's better to say something like, "I missed your voice," which is softer and more constructive. Emotional pressure can be especially dangerous because it creates a negative atmosphere in a relationship. When a person feels guilty, they can start avoiding situations that trigger those feelings. Instead, it's important to focus on the positives and gratitude. For example, if your son still found time to talk, you can say, "Thank you for calling. It was nice to hear your voice. How can I restore contact?" If you feel that the relationship has become colder, here are some practical tips to help restore contact. 1. Start with a simple dialogue. When you call or write, don't start with serious topics right away. Just try to find out how things are going. For example, "How are you? What's new in your life?" This will help defuse the situation and make the conversation more comfortable. Starting a dialogue with light topics is the key to successful communication. If you get straight to serious questions, your child may feel like he's being interrogated. Instead, try discussing something neutral, such as the weather, news, or events in the city. 2. Be interested in their lives. Show that you are really interested in what is happening in your children's lives. Ask about your job, hobbies, and future plans. This will help them feel your support. For example, if your son is interested in programming, ask him to tell you about his project. If your daughter practices yoga, ask how it affects her health. Taking an interest in your children's lives can be a powerful tool for bonding. When you show genuine interest, they feel appreciated and respected. This creates the basis for deeper and more meaningful conversations. 3. Maintain a positive attitude. I try to talk about pleasant things and share good news. This will create a positive atmosphere and make the children look forward to the next conversation. For example, you can tell us about your new hobbies, travels, or meetings with friends. Maintaining a positive attitude is especially important if your previous conversations were filled with criticism or dissatisfaction. People tend to avoid situations that cause negative emotions. Therefore, it is important to create an atmosphere of joy and gratitude. 4. Offer help. Offer your help in solving their problems, whether it's advice, financial support, or just attention. For example, if your son is having difficulty finding a job, offer him help in writing a resume or making recommendations from friends. Assistance can take different forms, depending on the situation. It is important that she is sincere and not intrusive. For example, if your daughter talks about the difficulties of raising a child, you can offer her your observations or recommendations based on your own experience, but without criticism. 5. Schedule meetings. If possible, arrange family gatherings or holidays. This will help strengthen connections and create new pleasant memories. For example, you can offer to celebrate a birthday with the whole family or arrange a weekend in nature. Organizing meetings is not only a way to communicate, but also an opportunity to create new traditions and memories. When people get together, they automatically start to feel closer to each other. This can be an important step towards rebuilding a relationship. What should I do if nothing helps? If you have done everything possible and the contact has not been restored, it is important to remember that it is not your fault. Sometimes people go through difficult periods in their lives, and they just need time and space. In such cases, focus on yourself. Find new hobbies, make friends, and do things that bring you joy. Your value does not depend on how often your children call. For example, you can start practicing yoga, reading books, learning something new, or traveling. This will not only help you cope with loneliness, but it will also make you a more interesting person for your children. It is important to remember that everyone has the right to their own space and time. Sometimes children just need a break to sort out their problems. Your task is to be close, but not to impose. Friends, remember, relationships require efforts on both sides. If you show patience, understanding, and love, the chances of restoring contact will increase. The main thing is not to lose hope and continue to believe in the power of family ties. If this topic is close to you, leave comments and share your experience. In the next video, we'll talk about how to keep things warm with your grandchildren. See you soon.